going on? Does Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Poloz expect these good times overall in the economy to keep on rolling, or are the markets a sign of trouble ahead? CBC's senior business correspondent, Peter Armstrong, sat down with Poloz today, and he joins us now in studio. Hi, Peter. Nice to see you here in person.
Isn't it nice? Yeah.
It's great to have you. So you talked with him about the state of the economy, the overall economy. What did he have to say about that?
Well, it's interesting because there's kind of these two narratives in the economy right now. One, he's saying the economy is doing well enough that we need to be raising interest rates and need to be sort of tightening that a little bit. But at the same time, the other narrative that things aren't so good played out on the markets this week. We saw, the case for pessimism, the case for we're at the very end of a long run and that a trade war with China is the harbinger of doom, and that investors out there are rightly scared that this could be the moment that things begin to turn. And so how does he balance those two things out was sort of where we started this conversation, because he says it's a double-sided risk. It could be bad, it could be positive, and he's not a trader who gets to pick one and go with it. He's a central bank that has to sort of measure these risks. And in doing so, he can see the upside. He can certainly see the downside. Here's what he had to say.
So markets are quite preoccupied with good reason with the threats of trade actions and how that's going to slow down China and also, by the way, the United States and other places. So I said this 3 months ago. People were completely preoccupied about NAFTA's going to get torn up. And I said, well, hang on, what if it doesn't? We have to compare both sides of this and try to strike a risk-balanced approach in the middle.
And as easy as it is to understand the negative case, you can look at the underlying fundamentals of an economy that's growing, GDP growth that's in solid shape, jobs are being added, wage growth is finally picking up. The United States is seeing a lot of that as well, and that's our biggest export market. So there is a positive case, but you do have to balance it against those very clear risks.
In light of that positive case, we did see interest rate, the rate hike up, right? So in general, there's a lot of conversation about what that means, especially for consumers. It's not like the warnings haven't been there for a while.
They're not. And I mean, we've talked so much. We've done this whole rollout this week looking at debt in general. The average Canadian owes $23,000. For every dollar we earn, we owe $1.69. The nation as a total, we owe like $2.1 trillion. We have one of the highest debt ratios we have the highest in the OECD. But the question is, have we begun to get that message? Has that begun to finally sink through? And you go back to when we began raising interest rates, and it was Mark Carney and it was Jim Flaherty, and they were warning even then. Then they knew they wanted the Canadian consumer to put the economy on their back and march it up this long, steep hill. And they did, and it worked, but this was the byproduct of it. But now we begin to see some sign that the Canadian consumer has taken that to heart. Retail sales came out this week, and we've begun to see a slowing. And so people are saying, I'm not going to go out and buy a brand new TV this week that I wanted to. I'm going to have to limit myself to the things I do want to, because I got to keep my debt in check, my interest rate, my debt ratio, the payment that I'm paying towards it is going up, and I need to worry about those. And that's a good sign, that message has finally begun to sink in.
What about south of the border? We have been watching the past few weeks. I have been watching in fascination, obviously watching the markets, but then hearing the president talk about the Fed there, calling, I think it was loco.
Loco
was the word that he used. What's going on there?
Well, I mean, there's an interesting thing happening where we've been dealing with monetary stimulus, so low interest rates to try to encourage consumers to spend. In the United States, they've been doing fiscal stimulus, so tax cuts and government spending. And you've got Trump upset that Jay Powell, the U.S. central banker, is now raising rates and is going to mess with the dollar and is sort of messing with what Trump sees as his mojo on this. And that relationship is intense and is getting very combative and is getting increasingly combative. I noticed in speaking with Poloz today, and I've spoken with him at several points through his term and through the recovery. And there have been times where he's been clearly frustrated. The economy is not doing what he expects of it, what economic theory would tell you that it should be doing. Through the oil shock, through all of that, he really seems to have a handle on things. He seems calmer and just more comfortable, both with the role and what the levers that he's been pulling are doing. And it really has sort of become the tale of two central banks. We've got one that's really an appointed fight with the political side, and then on this side, things have really begun to quite normalize.
How unique is that situation, though, in the States? Like,
it's bizarre. I can't think of words more than that. When you have CNBC, that has largely been a Trump supporter, saying, Mr. Trump, Jay Powell's not loco, you're loco on this. Like, really strong supporters of the president saying, you can't do this, you can't talk like that, you shouldn't be doing it. They need to reassert the independence of the Fed. It is a remarkable thing to watch unfold.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks a lot, Peter. Appreciate your time.